Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melanie and today we are doing my first reading vlog of 2025. I originally had plans to do something very specific for my first reading vlog, but it just didn't work out timing wise, so it'll come probably the second reading vlog if I get to it, but I'll stop being cryptic. This reading vlog is focused on finishing my TBR for February. I have 3 books left. They're all relatively short, I think all under 300 pages, so I think it's doable, but I'm giving myself 5 days. It's Monday the 24th. I would ideally love to finish it in February, but you know, it's okay if I'm in the middle of the last book and technically finish it in the beginning of March. So I'm giving myself 5 days, but we'll see if that's actually doable. So here are the books that I have left on my TBR, starting with Private Rites by Julia Armfield. Then we have Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. And then lastly, we have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I think I will be starting with Private Rites just because I've been putting this one off for a long time as well. I mean, I've been putting all of them off, but all 3 of these are on my 25 in 2025 list, so I'm very excited to knock some of those off. But yeah, I am very excited to get into this. So I will keep you posted next time I see you on how far I got. Hopefully later today, because if I don't read a lot today, then I'm kind of screwed. So with that, let's get going. Hello everyone, it is now Monday afternoon. What time is it? Just before 5. I have finished the first 2 chapters of the book. That is around 55 pages. So I wanted to give you an update and tell you what this book is about so far. So we're mainly following 3 different sisters, Isla, Irene, and Agnes. They are estranged. They both are pretty messed up people in their own way. They all have their unique quirks and different living situations, and we follow them as they find out that their dad is dead, and these sisters reunite for the first time in around 4 years to go to the hospital to see their dead father. And so it's really interesting so far. I love her writing. She does a really great job at writing kind of lyrical, but also not super lyrical and still straightforward prose or writing style. And it's more intriguing, I think, than Our Wives Under the Sea so far. And I do have very high hopes for this being a great book and me absolutely loving it. In the prologue, which was like very short, we also get the perspective of a young child in the house, most likely one of the sisters, watching some form of like exorcism happen or something. We're not really sure, but weird things are happening in that house when they were kids. So I assume that will come up into later parts of the book. And so that I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, their dynamic is just very weird and unique, but also very sisterly. If you have sisters, you kind of relate a little bit, but their situations are very unique. I believe all of them are queer, which is nice because you don't usually get all sisters being queer, but yeah. So I like that she did that, you know. It's a nice touch and it's very vibey. It's very rainy. Their dad was an architect, a really famous architect that specialized in like glass structures or like mirrored structures, and so that's kind of a really interesting vibe as well. Especially I'm a big architecture fan, so that's kind of a really intriguing part for me. and it's also just very flooded. I don't know what city we're in specifically. I'm pretty sure it's the UK, but so far I don't know what city. And there's also like a city POV in the book, which I find super interesting. And it kind of gives you more atmosphere, but it's also like, I don't know what role it'll play later on in the book, so I'm very curious about that. So a lot of intrigue right now, so I'll keep you posted. But my plan is to get a really big chunk of it done tonight via audiobook, because it's on Spotify Premium. And so ideally want to get to part 2, which is I think on like page 165. So a little over 100 pages left to go. I'll probably do some more physical reading later, and then a lot more via audiobook at night. And I'll check in with you probably tomorrow morning, because I want to move quickly through things. So I'll keep you posted. Hi everyone, it is now Tuesday morning, or actually afternoon now, but I finished part 1 this morning. I've been in work meetings and dealing with some stressful things. There's some big decisions I need to make this week, which is not easy and it's stressful, so it's impacting how much I'm reading, but I still think I'm on a good track. I have made it to page 177. Don't look, I don't think there's spoilers, but yeah, I am really enjoying it so far. We're still learning a lot about the sisters and their dynamic. I kind of figured out the world a little more. I think we're in like a climate crisis-y situation where there's just so much water. Like, they don't say like the ice caps are melted, but like it kind of feels like that vibe, and everything's kind of drenched, and normal agriculture and stuff doesn't work anymore. So there's a lot more genetically modified things and just different random changes to the ways of life moving forward. And so last time they met up to see their father, and then they made their way over to the house that they grew up in, and just dealing with their own personal relationships as well as their relationships with each other. And we get kind of a little more backstory thrown in here and there about like their moms. So like 2 sisters have one mother and 1 sister has a different mother. So some are half sisters. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and weird things are happening in this world. Like awful things are happening in this world that they witness, and yeah, it's a weird vibe. And so I'm really hoping we get more into that stuff in this next part, which I feel like we will, and kind of like what's going on exactly and what is this world. And so I'm really enjoying it. Her writing is very beautiful and very well done. It's a lot of back and forth. Each chapter is broken out into multiple viewpoints for all the 3 sisters. So it's a lot of kind of remembering who we're talking about in the moment, but so far it's not too hard to follow. But that is my check-in. I'll see you probably when I finish, because I don't know if there will be a point where I will want to film before that. It is now Wednesday afternoon. It's like noon, okay? It's not that much later. But I have an update for you from last night. I finished Private Rites. I really enjoyed this book. I really still don't know how or what rating I'm going to give it. I really need to like sit and digest it. And I think part of the reason is why I did a lot of it via audiobook, and
when I do audiobooks, especially at like faster speeds, I don't like connect as much to them, I feel like. So I think I might need to like start doing slower speeds, even though it feels like too slow sometimes. But I think once I switched to like 1.8 rather than 2, it was a little better to follow and easier to follow. But I really enjoyed where this book went. I really liked the world she built. I wasn't expecting like a unique, different world or like situation that the world is in. That was really interesting. The dynamic of the sisters and like what happens to them at the end, I was expecting but also not expecting in the way it happened. And the ending was kind of very poetic and beautiful, and her writing is just so incredibly interesting and intricate in this. So I really had a good time, and I definitely want to read more from her. I need to pick up her short story collection, Salt Slow. I think that's the only other thing I haven't read from her. But yeah, I don't know if this was the best book to read in a vlog, because there wasn't that much plot and it was a lot of vibes, like a lot of wet, oceany, messed up vibes, and kind of the world collapsing in a way. And so if that's your vibe, this is definitely the book for you. But I also ended up starting my next book, which I picked Never Let Me Go to be my next book. I read the first 2 chapters via audiobook last night at 1.8 as well, so I could follow it a little better. And so far it's different than the movie. So if you don't know, I have seen this movie before, the Keira Knightley, Carey Mulligan, and Andrew Garfield one. I loved that movie. I didn't know it was this book because I've seen this book so many times, but I just never put 2 and 2 together. And so I was like, oh, I should definitely read the book version of it. And so I'm trying not to give spoilers for either the movie or the book, because I really recommend the movie as well as hopefully this book, but they're done in unique ways. So I'm going to do my best to not give spoilers for anything or any of the reveals, even though they might happen at the beginning of the book or like towards the middle of the movie. So that's my bird clock going off. And I don't really want to give away anything that's not on the back of the book. So to explain what this book is about, we are following our main character, Kathy, in her adult life. She has been a carer at a hospital for 12 years now. And one of her patients asked her to talk about her time at her boarding school as a kid, which was famous, and its name is Hailsham. And so we get sent back in time to Kathy as I think 13-year-old, where she's at school. There's this boy named Tommy who is known for throwing really dramatic tantrums, and people make fun of him for it or egg him on or cause them, make fun of him, prank him, you know, anything to make him go have a tantrum. And so we follow her trying to like help him, you know, calm him down and befriend him slightly. And then there's this other girl named Ruth that is also part of like her little group of friends. And so those are kind of like our 3 main characters for this book, but Kathy is definitely the main character. But where I got right now, they're at the boarding school, and there's this new guardian who is telling them things. Oh, I forgot to explain this aspect. Creativity is very important at Hailsham. They really want people to express their artistic selves. And so once a year, there's this thing called an exchange, where these students are able to make art or something creative and buy each other's works that they really like in order to keep for themselves as their like personal belongings at the boarding school. So that's where we're at. That's only 2 chapters in, so I have a long way to go today, especially if I'm supposed to get to Pride and Prejudice by the end of this week as well. So far I'm really enjoying it. I will say this is not chronological. Obviously we start later in life and we're getting kind of the backstory now, versus the movie that is definitely chronological, which we start with them at the boarding school. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to not know what I can and can't say, but I think I did a relatively good job. If you've seen and read both, let me know. But I'm trying to make this as spoiler-free as possible. So I'll check in with you when I get a little further.
morning, everyone. It is Thursday morning now. I know you didn't get a check-in or reading update from me from reading yesterday because I didn't. And yesterday was kind of a big day for me. Like I mentioned earlier, I was making a big life decision and I officially accepted a new job offer at my same company, but it's a big transition for me. I was originally a contractor and now I will be full-time in this new role. It's very similar to what I do right now, just on a completely different team. And so I'm very excited, but also it's a little bittersweet because I really miss my team. I kind of wish I could have stayed on and been converted in that route, but I'm also very excited for where this new role will take me. So I kind of gave myself a break yesterday, just did what I felt. We had some cheap wine and expensive sushi to celebrate, so I took it easy yesterday and last night. So today the goal is to read as much as possible for Never Let Me Go, because I have to at least start Pride and Prejudice by tomorrow, otherwise I won't count it for February. So wish me luck, because I'm still only on chapter 4. I lied and I actually read up to 3 chapters the first night, or Tuesday night, I think. So a long way to go, but I will check in with you later. It is Friday morning now, on day 5. I somehow managed to finish Never Let Me Go yesterday night, not even super late. I read a ton throughout the day. I had a really light work day, so that helped a lot, and I'm kind of surprised I could do this with skipping a whole day of reading. But I really enjoyed this book. I'm so glad I read it because, like I've said, I love the movie. So that's kind of what I'm going to be comparing it to. But just the way he writes, it felt so comforting for some reason. And this is not like an uplifting book at all. But the way he wrote, like the character dynamics, the relationships, Ruth and Kathy's relationship, like we all have known a Ruth in our life. Like she's kind of the worst, but you still understand her in some ways. But yeah, the way he wrote the relationships, it just went so much deeper and than the movie, obviously, because it's a book. But I thought it was really well done. And the reason it was comforting, I can't really describe it, but I feel like maybe because it was like a lot about being human and humanity, and a big theme of it was like acceptance of the end, and it was just really well done, and I'm so happy I read it. And to compare it to the movie, I think the movie was pretty accurate to the book, so nothing was super shocking, but we did get deeper answers in this book than in the movie. And so I really enjoyed that aspect. But even then, like, I think you can still watch the movie and read it and still get something out of it. I would say though, the movie has more of an impact in terms of the twist of the book. The book kind of starts out right away telling you what that twist is. And there's things you learn along the way for sure in the book that you didn't know in the beginning, but the movie definitely saves the twist for a better time, I would say. So I kind of recommend starting with the movie, and if you really like it, then read the book, because the movie's just really well done and
The movie made me cry. The book, I was tearing up at the end just because it was really beautifully written, the ending of this. And so, yeah, I highly recommend this. Like I usually do, I'll save my final rating for the end. But I also somehow had time to start Pride and Prejudice via audiobook. I think the chapters are like super short. So I think I at least got to like 5 or 6. So it's like only like 30 pages or so. But it's like a warm hug. I'm so happy I'm finally reading this, and I definitely want to read it physically, but I was like concerned it would be harder for me to read or like follow because of like the language of the time, but I guess I've read so much more complicated and older books since I read this originally, so it's actually pretty easy to follow. Like, it is by far not the most complicated structure or time period language that I've read this far, so I think it's pretty accessible for a classic, to be honest. If you somehow don't know what Pride and Prejudice is about, we are following the Bennet family. A new young man has just moved into town, and he is very rich and handsome, and he throws a ball and meets the family. The Bennet family has, I think, 5 sisters, a mother and a father, and Jane is taken up with this new young man, and then Elizabeth, the second oldest sister, Jane is the oldest, gets into a tiff with his friend who doesn't want to dance with her that night. So very fun and very quick. Honestly, this is moving a lot faster than I was expecting it to. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it, and I really think I can make a big dent in this today, I'm hoping, because ideally I do want to finish this, if possible, today. I don't want to put that on myself officially, but we'll see. I have a pretty open afternoon, so I'll get as much done as possible, and if not, I have time tomorrow to finish it. So yeah, wish me luck. So it is March 1st, Saturday at around 3 p.m. I did finally finish Pride and Prejudice, which I finished 2/3 of the book last night. I got up to part 3. There's 3 parts, each like 100 pages each, so I only had one more part to go today. I read the majority of this via audiobook just because it was a really well done audiobook and I was enjoying it more that way. And it was taking me a lot longer to read it physically, you know, because of the older language. But I know I said it was pretty accessible, which it is still, but you know, it still takes a little brain power to get through it in comparison to a regular book. But also, like, I would say Private Rites was also pretty hard to get through physically as well, so I did a lot of that via audiobook. And so yeah, this book is like a warm hug. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but this is a reread for me. This is my book from high school where I read it for class, and I do have some like random annotations in there, so that's kind of fun, and I went back and like looked through a bunch of them. But yeah, this book is like a warm hug. It's very similar to the Keira Knightley movie and also the Colin Firth version as well, so I knew exactly what I was getting into even though I hadn't read it in a long time, and it's just so fun and drama-y and gossipy, and I love it. And yeah, I just love this era as well, so I really had a great time, and don't really need to go into like what the book is about really, but there's things the movie definitely does really well. And it's kind of funny, I feel like I'm reviewing the movies and books for at least 2 of these in this reading vlog, but you know, they're both popular, so I'm gonna do that. But yeah, I really enjoyed myself. It was really nice to remind myself what the story is, book form, because I watch the movie all the time and I'm about to go watch it again. Kaylin and I also have plans to watch Never Let Me Go tonight. He's never seen it. He knows what the story is about and like the twist and everything, but he's never seen it, so we're gonna just rewatch the movie adaptations of what I've read this week. And so I've had a pretty great week. Now it's time for me to finally rate these books. So starting with what I first read this week, and to be fair, 6 days full, but more so 5 because I missed a full day of reading, and reading 3 books, like that's insane to me. That is not my normal cadence. It usually takes 3 to 5 days, or sometimes even longer, for me to finish a book, depending on the length. But for example, 400-page book, probably 5 days typically. So I read a ton this week, like nonstop, and I had the time luckily, but in no way is this like a normal reading week for me. I never typically read 3 books in 1 week, so this was a challenge for myself. But back to Private Rites. It took me a while to think about whether I would give this a 5 or not, because I really loved the intrigue, the weirdness, the creepiness in the world she built, and the dynamic between the 3 sisters, but I think the writing was a little too lyrical and prosy for me. So I'm gonna end up with like a 4.5, I think. I think that feels right, but this could change very much down the line. But it felt more prosy than Our Wives Under the Sea. Our Wives Under the Sea felt a little more accessible, and I do really wish we went a little further into the creepy, like, mystery aspect of this book. Though I do love the ending. It was very poetic and beautiful, and I thought she did a really great job with that. But I wanted a little more, I think. Just a little bit. Just a tad. The second book I read was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This one I have to give 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It felt so nice to read it as well as watch the movie. Like I said before, I recommend both, but I just had a great time. I flew through this. I was like in it, even though it's not like a super plot driven book. But I don't know, something about his writing. I really want to read something else from him because yeah, it really intrigued me and made me feel something. So I hopefully will read something else from him soon, but I have a lot of other books to get through first. So yes, this one is definitely a 5 star. And then last but not least, Pride and Prejudice, which I just finished like 30 minutes ago. This one I have to give it 5 stars. I'm just obsessed with this story in general, all the characters, the movie version, the book version, everything is just great, and I love a period piece like this, and this is like, you know, the true enemies to lovers, very fun. But though I wouldn't say like it's a like romance novel, it's definitely like a family drama novel, but yeah, it's a fun time, and I recommend it to anyone who, and it's a really good intro to classics, I would say. And this is the only thing I've read from Jane Austen, so I have a lot to get through, and I really want to read Sense and Sensibility and Emma and, you know, get through her entire catalog at some point, but I'm gonna start with one of those probably. So yeah, I did my 3 books in 1 week, even though technically I finished this one the first day of March. I'm still counting it as my February TBR, and I am very proud of myself. I did a lot of reading, and surprisingly all of these books are based in the UK, which I think was kind of funny. That was not planned, and I didn't even realize it when I picked them, but yeah, they're all British books, which I find entertaining, and they're all very great reads, so I recommend all of them. And so that wraps up my first reading vlog of 2025. That's kind of crazy, but there's another one coming up. Plan on doing another very ambitious one, so bear with me. That might take longer than a full week. It will definitely take longer than a full week, but something to look forward to. And I think next up coming up this week, I'll have my March TBR out. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye.